Okay, so just as a reminder, we are recording, so your faces won't be included in that recording, but if you ask a question, that will be recorded, but please do not, don't feel hesitant to ask questions. We want to get those questions asked. So we're gonna go ahead and tone the paper. As you can see, I'm just using my chamois right now. It's a great way, everybody, to clean your chamois as well as tone the paper. As I use my chamois, you can see it's actually getting cleaner because what's happening, obviously, I'm sure you all know, it's just the charcoal that's on the chamois is dumping onto the paper. It's a great way to clean the paper as well as, clean the chamois as well as tone the paper. I want to put this in a place where you don't keep seeing my nose constantly. And just again, sorry that I wasn't able to be present on Monday for our regular class. Having parents that are aging is very complicated and difficult. So I had to stay an extra day in Florida, which is somewhere I did not want to be. Okay, so we're gonna work today on the head. We've been working a little bit on the head, but we're gonna kind of go through and spend some time today just kind of drawing a face and a neck together. And hopefully that will help you to continue to sort of get a hold out, like a feeling for the head as a whole, and get a feeling for drawing with the charcoal with a form-based approach rather than a linear approach, which I saw quite a bit of in the studies was quite a bit of contour. And contour is really great for a lot of things, but it can also be detrimental if you're trying to create something which you can change and mold and alter. And so as you're working with the portrait, I want you to be really conscious of how you are utilizing your line, for instance, or like, using line in the beginning in the gesture, and then building on that with value, eventually removing the line from the entire drawing. Okay, so since you're all following along with me, I thought I would work from a portrait that was already existing. So I'm going to work from this little self-portrait of JMW Turner, and then you're going to follow my drawing as we go. So I'm looking for a self-portrait that was straight on, and I also like the fact that he's in this like sort of Georgian Regency style, neck chief and coat. So we are going to begin with, I'm sorry, go ahead and begin with the overall shape of the egg. I need my glasses, everybody. And let's make it nice and big. I'm just gonna put my boundary here so that I can draw within the space that you're always gonna see. Okay, let's get rid of that. I'm gonna start with the shape of the head. So remember, it's like an egg. Okay, now for this portrait, we have visible neck. So let's go ahead and put the neck. And remember, the neck is going to be right around where that mandible starts to have that angle as it goes back. And then Turner's done this thing where he's masked his shoulders into the background, but they're going to come down through. He's got a high neck collar on like this. And then this is coming through here like that, a shape like that. Okay. And then here we have another shape coming through like that. So if we take the measurement of the head, here's the measurement of the head, 1, 2.5, basically, for the whole torso that we can see visible. Now, all I'm really worried about doing here with you, I'm not really worried about like this thing being like, you know, an exact copy of the painting. I just want to make sure that you're drawing and you're following along in terms of understanding proportions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put that median line right down the middle of the head. And then that's going to tell us like, okay, so that's the median line. So the eyes are going to come up halfway. So I didn't really see anybody really getting that eye measurement wrong, but watch out for it because it will totally slip up on it really easy and place it too low or too high. So then if you just divide the space like here, let's see, we're going to divide it like, we want to figure out how to get those 5 eye widths across. And one of the things I wanted to like reiterate with you compared to like the you know, the way that you may have drawn faces in the past and the way I want you to draw faces is the way in which you create a unit of measurement. So like here, what is the unit of measurement going to be? Well, let's use the width of the eye. There's 1 eye width between the eyes, 2, 3, right? And then we have 4 and 5. Now, half of that last section is temple to ear. So we're going to put a line there and put a line there. Those are going to become the outside edges. Okay, we're going to come down. He's got almost 2 eye widths down to the bottom of his nose. 1, 2, just a little bit less than 2. About there. Then divide this space here and basically in half. That's going to be the center of the mouth. Now, at this moment, go ahead, let's make the background dark because his background is dark. Don't worry so much about like the contour of the head right now. We'll figure that out. But what we're going to do by doing this is we're going to push the head forward. Like so. Now you could be using your medium fine charcoal or your soft, it's up to you. Now he's gonna do this tricky thing that portrait painters like to do. Go ahead and define, let's just say, okay, the shoulders are coming through here. But then down here, we're gonna go dark. Professor Vaughn has a good idea here. So keep going. Sometimes she thinks of things a moment too late, but I bet you'll have an easier time, Professor Vaughn, if your students actually have the photograph. It's at the Tate Gallery, so this should be a good link. Yes, we like cookies. We all like cookies, right? All right, so I'm just going to drop this into the chat so you can pull up the picture yourself, everybody. Oh. The C has stopped working on my laptop. So it constantly forgets, it constantly doesn't copy when I hit copy. So there's the image, everybody. Why don't you all go put that on your phone or something, just so you know what I'm drawing when I'm talking. That's more helpful, right? Yes. Okay, good. Can you give me a thumbs up, everybody, if you have that image? Okay, just be on your phone or something. Okay, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so we can see that we're not going to worry about likeness right now. That's the worst thing you could do. The one thing that you could do right now that would really set you back is worry about this looking exactly like Turner. It would really set you back. Instead, what we want to do is look for places where we can see big forms. So before we do that, let's check our measurements, okay? So when I measure Turner's head, so I'm going to take my fingers right here. I'm going to measure Turner's head. I'm going to check everything. This is 1 unit. That measures down from the chin to his chest, 1 unit, and about half a unit. So let's check this. 1 unit, and about half a unit. So my relationship from the top of the head to the bottom of the picture is correct in my drawing. Now I'm going to measure my unit again. I'm going to measure across. I'm going to use that little like knot, y'all, like right by the clavicle where he has that the knot in the kerchief. I'm going to use that as like almost like my center point. So I'm going to go back to the picture. Here's the picture. I know it's small, but you've got it too, right? You've got it also. I'm going to use that knot right there as the center median line, and I'm going to measure the unit of the head, and I'm going to measure over to see how wide the painting is from that unit based on what I see. Because basically his shoulders are coming down through here and he's just disappearing. So about 1 and a wee little bit, like a quarter. 1 and a wee little bit. Okay, so 1 and a wee little bit to the outside edge. And then the same thing again. Unit of measurement, 1 and a wee little bit. It's about a quarter. 1 and a wee little bit, about a quarter. So now my portrait is going to be developed off of a foundation that we know is similar to the foundation in the painting. Does that seem clear, everybody? You can just do thumbs up. Great. Okay. So let's take our charcoal. And again, we're not going to worry about looking like Turner. Okay, we're going to evoke the Turner mannerist concept of feeling, and we're going to feel the form. So we know, for instance, that just based on general anatomy, that the bottom of the ears are going to line up with the bottom of the nose. And then what I want you to do, so go ahead and put those markers in. What I want you to do is I want you to come down, look at the angle of his jawline. And you can even measure it, right? Like I can take my tool and I can measure, I can place my tool against the painting right where the jawline is. And I can get that measurement and pull it over and check it in my drawing. Okay, so I see that angle, and then I can measure this angle. And look, I can just drag that. Boop. 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 Okay, so you can do this with your self-portrait when it's time to do your self-portrait. I know right now you don't have a digital photograph printout of Turner, but that's okay. You can just measure, like I can measure this angle without ever touching my paper. And so you can do that too. And then he's got quite a square jaw because he's a young lad. It's not square like that when he gets older because he loved wine and very fine food. And then we're going to come back up. Okay. And then I'm going to measure straight up because that's what I see here for that side of the jaw. Now, I'm going to measure how far down is that knot in the kerchief. Well, if I measure it here, sorry, I'm trying to figure out like how is this, like, what's the best way to do things here. If I measure that distance from the bottom of the chin to the kerchief knot, it's about this big. Sorry, there you go, about that big, right? And then I'm going to measure that into the face and say, how far is that? Well, it's basically the same as from the bottom of the chin to the bottom of the nose. Okay, now we determined that, we determined that the bottom of the nose was about here and the bottom of the chin is about here. So if we take that unit, we can measure down and that's going to tell us where that knot's going to go. You know, and again, he has this Georgian Regency style neckerchief on, right? And it's covering his neck. But in a way, it's kind of like really helpful for us because like we can really see where his neck is. Right now, don't worry about every little fold. I want you to take the side of your tool and just block in where you see dark on the neckerchief. Nice big shape. I had that a little bit wrong. That needs to go down a little bit there. Okay, leave it. Don't touch it. Okay, now you could even use the charcoal on your finger right now, or you could pick some up off of the drawing and put it on your finger. And let's just put it where we think the eyes are going to go, in here and in here. Don't touch it. Leave it. Okay. Now, come back over here. We see this shape. Measure the angles. What is the angle of the outside of that white shirt or collar? There's that angle. What is the measurement of the outside? So this line is broken into two angles. One angle at the bottom comes up a little bit beyond halfway. You can measure it, pull it back to check. Here's the other angle. So again, this angle and this angle, that collar or whatever it is broken halfway, a little bit higher than halfway it turns. So we want to find that. Now, just like the egg, we can see and have a look at your picture closely, that the left side here of the background against the dark side of the face, the left side of that background is ever so lighter than, say, the right side of the background in the portrait. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that as a way to solidify the shape of the head. I don't want us to use contour to solidify the shape of the head. I want us to use the background. So zoom in on your picture on your screen or look really closely and see where can you see the ear shape. Now we know because we marked where the temples was. So we could just draw a line straight up from there. So that's the space in which the ear is going to exist in here. Doesn't have to be perfect right now. It's all malleable. It's all safe to move and change. Okay. So it's going to come, this is going to come into here. I had that a little bit off. Again, don't draw tiny shapes. Don't draw details. We're going to put his hair in. His hair is kind of poofy, sitting on the top of his head, but we're not drawing the inside. We're just drawing the outside. And then we're going to take the side of our tool and we're going to bring the darkness up to that edge that we just created there. Now, in your image, you may be like, where is the edge of the shoulder? Yeah, he's doing that on purpose. Like, that's trickery. He's doing that on purpose. He's using this idea that, you know, we've talked about the idea of the composite shape. He's using composite shape. The background becomes jacket. And so that should remind you of Thoreau. Value becomes form. This is a very classic Georgian painting in terms of the style of the painting. This is when everyone liked Turner. You know, as Turner gets older and he starts to get more and more interested in color and the sublime, more and more people start turning on Turner. He's just too wild, too unorthodox. So we're going to go through here and we're going to make this edge over here darker. And go ahead and pull this darkness down to the hairline. And then just pull in, but don't make it dark through here. I love charcoal. So good. Okay. Here. See, we're not worrying about the face. Do you see that? We're not worrying about it. It's only part of what is important. It's only part of what's important. What we want to worry about are big shapes and big forms and big planes. Now in your brain, you may say, oh, you want me to invest in the drawing? What if the face doesn't come out okay in the end? Well, so what? The face doesn't come out okay in the end and you start again and you try again. Like it's a long process to learn to draw. But here's the thing, right? Like if you focus on his eye right now and you spend 30 minutes drawing his eye, you'll never be able to draw the other eye the same way. And then you'll forget to measure to the nose and the nose will be too short or too long. So we're building up systematically so that we can have a proportional foundation, which is going to be solid. Okay, we're making a house. I'm going to go in, I'm going to darken it down here because I see it darker in the painting. And then I'm going to pull up through here because I see it going up through here. And almost right to the end here, it's almost just as dark as the background, except for it's just a hair darker. Now, if you want to make that step forward, just take your fingers and just tap. And then just like wipe your fingers on something like a towel or something. You see, just kind of like lift off a little bit of that value. Nuance, y'all. Like nuance is a big part of like work in the arts, whether it's a painting or drawing. Nuance is really important. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to take our tool again and we're going to go through here and we're going to say, okay, so we see darkness over here. We see the ear is in darkness. And then we're going to come down through the zygomatic, through the maxilla into the mandible. Do you see? So again, this is the egg. This is not a face. Forget the idea of the face. It's not what we're making. We're not making a face, y'all. We're just making an egg. Bring that over just a little bit, like so. Same thing. Where do you see shadow on the other side of the head? Well, underneath the hair, we see shadow, right? And then we see some shadow over there. And then this side is, it's not as dark as the other side, is it? It's a little bit lighter. The ear is definitely knocked back though. Now, if we want to sort of define those rosy cheeks, we can just very lightly for now. So you're just adding darks, okay? Don't worry about lights right now. Don't worry about drawing forms. You're just adding darks. It looks kind of anime right now. You know, I don't disapprove of anime. Some of my drawing instructor friends do. I don't. I think it teaches basic proportions that are a system that teaches you how to find systems in drawing, and that's perfect. Okay, let's go back. Let's leave the face now. And you see, like, what I'm doing is I'm purposely pushing us to not deal with the face, but slowly we're dealing with the face. You see, we're feeding the face while we're feeding other areas. And so the face isn't going to take over priority because all the values in the face are all going to require all this other value in order to exist correctly. Also, take the pressure off. Take the pressure off. It's not, you know, it's not a face. It's just shapes and darkness and light. Okay, so if you're right now, if you're not following along and you're just drawing on your own and you're trying to draw that face, stop. I will be able to tell. You don't think I would, but I will. Okay, so let's look at the darks again. Let's look at this knot. So we have a really dark spot here. And then like over here, we have a dark spot. Now this knot then comes, we can check the angle in a second. Just draw what you think the angle is going to be as it comes down. And again, go ahead and composite shape this. Try to just see the overall shape. And look, I'm kind of using contour. All you fans of contour out there, look at that. I used contour, right? But I'm not going to keep it. Immediately, I'm going to go in and say, okay, so there's a dark here. Okay. Now, there's a shadow, a big shadow coming off of the kerchief down through here. Let's get that in. Boom, that contour is gone, you see? No contour. Now over here, this part's dark. Look how he's done that, right? Like he set us up. He's like, check this out. I'm going to use a dark behind this light, and that dark is going to push that light forward. And damn it, it's going to sing. It's going to be so strong. It's going to be so potent. Genius artist. You know, and our feeling is like, oh, you could just been wearing a white shirt with a black suit. No, not at this time. There's no camera. Materials are really expensive. He's not going to waste it on a guess. He's going to set this up. He's going to think about this. Okay, I'm going to take my chamois and just kind of like transition this a little bit softer. So, and what we're going to do in a little bit is we'll use our lights and we're like rip the lights out of there, and it will have dimensionality in form. Over here, we have not a line, but like a shadow underneath this kerchief and that shirt or whatever's underneath there. Now there's a dark edge here that we can see, so we can go ahead and put that in. That's the outside of the jacket. And then we have this little triangle of light, and then back up, and then boom, we can say, okay, look, we had that whole shape there, the wrong value. Let's get it the right value. Okay. Now, let's find a little bit of this face. Okay, over here, we're going to start with the left eye. Go ahead and put in just that circle for the pupil. Now, there's a slight tiny turn of his head. Okay, a little tiny turn to the right. It's tiny. It's mostly just his nose, but his right eye is just a hair closer than his left to the nose. Now this and this, like we said, that was the width of the eye. So that tells us that we know where the width of the nose is. Now, if you've been following along all the lectures, everybody knows that the width of the nose is equal to the width of the eyes. See what I did there? See what I did? Again, don't worry about it. It's not a thing. It's just a thing. It's not a nose yet. It's just a thing. Leave it. Leave it. Dark shadow underneath this form. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I have a razor blade here, but you have a knife. I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to trim some of this down. And it's going to have a little bit of a point on it now so that I can go in there. And what I'm going to do, watch, this is like how you would do this if you're standing up. I'm going to place my arm here and I'm going to draw a cross like this. And I'm going to find where that nostril is going to exist and put it in. And then follow that shadow underneath. And then over here, I'm going to find where that nostril is going to exist. And then pull it up. And you see, by sharpening my tool, that allows me to kind of get it a bit closer there. Now, again, right now, it's very hard to like make a decision about something and like be like, oh, maybe it's not exactly right. Just leave it. It's a placeholder. It's a marker. It's not the end. It's just the beginning. Let's go ahead now and let's get the top lip in there. Remember that the outside corners of the mouth are going to line up with the pupils. Now we can see that bottom lip is pretty bright, but then that means that we have that shadow underneath the bottom lip. Okay. Just darkness. Just darkness. Not eyebrows. Don't say eyebrows, just darkness. Just darkness coming into the shape of the eye. Okay. Just leave that alone for now. You can see the trick to things here, right? The thing that we're thinking about, everybody, is like we're not really trying to think about a head and not trying to think about a face. We're just trying to think about light and dark. And that's going to always give us the chance to feel more malleable in our position of drawing. Let's go in here. We're not going to put lines in, we're going to put shadows. Shadow here. Shadow here. Shadow. This whole side's kind of in shadow, but we're putting darker shadows in here. Shadow, just reinforcing what we did earlier. And then over here, you can find some bumps in that cloth. Just don't draw outlines. Now, outline, everything's the same thickness, okay? But diversification of the line weight will create a much more dimensional form. This is going to be a bit darker. And then
Your drawing screen froze.
Did it? Oh. I was really getting into my drawing too, darn it. How's it going? All right?
Yeah.
Okay, Zach, you doing okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for alerting me to that. Okay, dark shadow underneath here. Now we can see in the painting, there's a little, it goes dark shadow, reflected light, dark shadow. That's that egg, right? That's the egg bouncing, that light bouncing. Now, again, we're not going to worry about specifics right now. We're not going to worry about the shape of the eye. Let's go in. We do see inside the ear is darker in here. It's going to come down. And we do see on the other side some darkness over here, a little bit in there. What's up?
I think I accidentally hit the unmute button, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. All right, now there's a little bit of this like shadow in here, and it's actually because there's reflected light underneath that darker mandible shadow, and it's reflecting onto his neck, and that's the neck that we can see there. Now what we're going to do, we can see where this dark solid is. Now next to it is like a white that's in shadow. So let's go ahead and find underneath that light, underneath that white. Again, measure to find the angles, right? Remember, measure to find the angles. Measure, measure, measure. If you want to know the trick to drawing, it's measuring. You know, like think about, sorry, my brain just left me. Thinking about, in my brain, I'm thinking about, for instance, like Ingres. And everyone's like, oh, Ingres' drawings, oh, they're so perfect, and every line is perfect. Yeah, he used the camera lucidia. He used the lens. He traced. Okay, like, and so what did they do before they had lenses? Well, they used angles and units of measurement and grids. That's what they did. Doesn't mean that Angra was a bad drawer. Hell no, he was a brilliant drawer. But he used something that helped him to be accurate. And so when you're drawing, I want you to use what you have at your disposal, which is in particular measuring and figuring out angles based on where they are to one another. Y'all use the tools you have. So like one of the things that I would suggest that you do maybe is like take the photograph of your self-portrait and put it into a drawing app like Sketchbook or even like Microsoft Word and trace the contours and feel the shapes. And that can really help to improve your accuracy when you go to freehand draw, because you've already, you've mapped things out. You already have an understanding of where things are going to go because you've developed an understanding through tracing. Now over here, I'm just going to strengthen my darks over here. Like so. Now the shape here, we already said was darker down here. It's got some values in it down here. And then in here, there's a little bit of a twist. Here, there's a little bit of a twist. Okay, and then here, there's a darker shadow. And then we're going to come up through here and it's darker too. Now it's not white, right? Like that's not white. Look at it. Our brain says it's white maybe because it's the same kind of cloth that the shirt's made from. So our brain says white, but value is affecting it in this chiaroscuro style painting. Chiaroscuro means a style of painting where you have extreme darks and extreme lights, but you also have middle range darks and middle range lights. In tenebriism, which is what people often think of as chiaroscuro, you have a much higher contrast of dark and light. There's less intermediate stuff. I love with Vine charcoal, you can just blow in some of your drawing leaves. I'm just going to come in here. There's a middle tone in here between that dark shadow and the light. I'm going to find that. Over here, the line looks like a line, but it's not. It's a shadow. It's a crease. It's a fold. It's a twist of fabric. It's undulating like a wave. We have even more values through here. Okay. Let's see, what is this? So again, I'm going to take my Vine charcoal. Actually, I'm going to use a smaller piece this time. And again, I'm just going to shave off the tip of it into like a point. Now, if you have a nail file, this is perfect for a nail file. You do this with a nail file, just rotate and twist it as you're rubbing it against the nail file. Or a piece of sandpaper. Okay, so I'm going to take my pinky, which is kind of dirty. I'm going to rub my pinky against my sweater or my paper towel or whatever I have close by. I'm going to take my pinky, I'm going to put it down in this area right here because there's going to be light there. And so we're going to do some erasing in there. So it doesn't matter if I drop a fingerprint in there because I'm going to erase it later. I'm going to take my sharpened tool and I'm going to just define the contour of the top eyelid. Just angles, y'all. So now I'm starting to worry about the face. Do you see how long we were drawing before we started to worry about the face? That's what I need from you. The whole drawing, everything in the drawing affects everything else. All value is relative, all form is relative. And so if you forget about everything else, then the drawing's never going to look right. Same thing, I'm gonna put my finger into this area because I know I'm going to erase. So if I leave a fingerprint, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna pull the angle of the top of the lid here down and then over like so. So the right eye's got a little less definition in his painting. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, that can be blended away or erase that later. I'm going to come down and I'm going to draw that side of the nose. And I'm actually going to pull the shadow all the way down through here. And just kind of like put that in and then use my finger to blend away. Now I just kind of like knocked the nostril. I don't care. I won't go back. It's not a big deal. Don't stress. If you drew it once, you can draw it again. Over here, there's going to be that shadow coming down into the cheek. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my arm like I did earlier. I'm going to place it across my drawing. So I'm not going to lean into my drawing with my hand. And I'm going to redefine that nostril. And also he has quite a large sort of like bulbous part of his nose here. And there's a shadow on the bottom of the nose. And reinforce this shadow here. Sometimes what I do is I'll put something in darker than I need it to be, and then I'll just tap it with my finger and it's fine charcoal, so it lifts right off. Okay, so then let's go and look now at sort of just like the shape of his mouth. That's probably a bit too high right there. And watch what I do, because you're going to be drawing, most of you will be drawing on some type of wall, or, you know, at least your drawing board will be propped up. Again, I'm going to place my arm here across, and I'm going to lean on my arm. You see, so that I don't have to touch the drawing with my hand. This is why you don't want to draw on the floor laying down. So that's going to come up there a little bit. Oh, too high, Vaughn. Push that down, push that down. This is a little bit bigger. Now you're also kind of looking at my drawing from the side, just a hair, so that I can really kind of like get into drool. If the camera was right here, I wouldn't be able to do that. So it's a little bit of a skewed point of view that you're seeing. Now I'm going to reinforce the darks inside here. We're going to lift some light out in there in a minute, but right now it's going to reinforce it. And then look, underneath his eye here, he has some darks here. Now that dark down there is really important because it's from that dark that we're going to lift out the light to create the water, like the watermark, or not watermark, what do they call that? The water line at the bottom of the eyelid over here and the white of the eye. Same thing on this side. Okay. Now I'm going to take my chamois. I think I need probably the power of the chamois here. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of like lighten and smooth over there. Go back in and redefine this, but I just kind of lost a little bit. You see, I'm always working and redefining and pushing and manipulating and changing my drawings. Like when I'm working with charcoal like this, like I'm never like in a place where I feel like I'm perfectly aligned until the very end. And I just have to, I think that was something that was really hard for me to get over when I was younger as an art student, was like, how do I deal with when something's wrong? And I just want to hyper focus on it. And the problem with that is often the thing that you think is wrong is actually right, and it's something else that's wrong. So you always want to look out for that. It's, you know, it's a distraction. So we're going to draw hair. Like a lot of you are drawing hair like strand by strand. That's not how you draw a forest. Remember when we drew the forest, we just draw the shapes. Same thing with hair. We don't draw strand by strand. We look for big shapes and big movement. So look in the shadows for the shapes that you can find. Put in the shadows to find the movement, but don't draw strands of hair. Okay. So we're starting to see a head, right? We're starting to see a portrait. Seeing that trying to see that youth come through, right? Like that little bit more youthful look. Now there's a movie about Turner. It's called Mr. Turner. And I think that the directors of the movie, I've never actually watched it because even though I love Turner, because the directors of the movie, I think were very irresponsible. And they made a decision to include something about Turner based on their assumption that it may have possibly have happened. And it makes Turner to be, very villainous. And I've read a couple books on Turner and I've been exposed to Turner my whole life. And I'd never actually heard this before. This part of this movie that said that he had done this villainous thing. And so I did a bunch of research and I looked it all up and I read an interview with the director and they were like, yeah, we have no evidence that this is real, but we think that this could possibly have been real based on the way that people acted at the time. And I think it was really irresponsible because I've had students tell me that they stopped liking Turner because of that movie. And, the fact that it's not really something that happened, it was just a projection, I think is really irresponsible. When someone's making a movie, because, people tend to see a movie and then they think that's the truth, right? And, in a way, these actors and actresses become these people in our minds. So Selma Hayek becomes Frida Kahlo. Ed Harris becomes Jackson Pollock. And so I feel like when these movie makers do things like this, that they have a responsibility to be accurate and to not hurt the reputation of somebody and also hurt the viewers, that it was very irresponsible what they did. Okay, so I'm looking at my drawing right now. I can see that my right eye is too low. So I'm just going to get rid of it. I'm going to make sure this time that I get it in the right spot. It needs to be higher, and that's just the way it is, it's wrong, so change it. Okay, so let's go. Let me get my headphones. My headphones. Okay, so let's get back to work here. We're going to zoom in so you can see a bit better. So we're going to sort of begin the process of focusing a little bit more on just building form in the face. And then we're going to go through, and what we're going to do is just like before, we're going to focus on kind of the face, but we're also going to bounce around, okay, which is purposeful. That's our goal, is to not get overly excited about one area. Sorry, it looks like my headphones aren't connected. Okay, that should be better. Okay. In case that didn't record, we're going to be kind of moving through the face, but also bouncing around still through the body. So on his right eye, we can see there's quite a steep angle that goes in, almost goes in because of the shadow. It feels like it's going into the nose, but it's not quite going into the nose. So let's put in our angle here, and then we have shadow area through here, right? And it's the shadow here that's making the light step forward on the eye. So we need to make sure that we get that in. It's probably a wee bit too dark, but that's okay. We can always lighten it later. Now, when you're beginning this process of like getting closer to refinement, something that I think is really helpful and necessary is thinking about the importance of not overworking in this one particular moment when you're trying to make things more functional. So what I mean by that is like when you're trying to refine areas, you don't want to again fall victim to forgetting about everything else. So I want you to work with me and try to work along. Don't get drawn into the drawing. So we're going to define that little shadow area there on the top of the eyelid. And then we can define the edge of the eye here. This is going to be a bit brighter in there. And then the angle of the eyebrow is going to be steeper. Done. Leave it alone for now. It's not right. It's not perfect, but you're done for now. We're going to pull into this area here. And then we're going to pull into this area here a little bit more because there's a little bit less sort of bridge of the nose there and that supercilious arch. Okay. And then we're going to come in. This is going to be darker in here. Same thing. Let's reinforce down here where we put some time in before. Don't overdo it. Now let's look at the cheeks. So we can see that there's a little bit of a shadow under here. You know, underneath that sort of like zygomatic area. What it is, I think, when I look at it, isn't so much like a definition of a muscle as it is the difference between where the dark shadow is and the reflected light is. We're just going to pull that in through there. Just blend it up. It's not dark. It's not jet black. You know, this isn't David Bowie. Though Turner was the David Bowie of his time, no doubt. Now over here, there's a little bit of a shadow here. And let's go back underneath the lower lip, define that further. And then let's define underneath that reflected light here again. A little bit of darkness over there. There was a band in the early 2000s called The Darkness, and they only had one song that became popular. And whenever I say The Darkness, all I can think about is this band. You should look up the song. It's called I Believe in a Thing Called Love. It's a crazy song. The video is remarkable. Okay, just going in and darkening some of these shadows in the neck chief. The necktie. Darken, darken, leave alone. Darken, pretty dark in there, leave it alone. If you did your work in the beginning, your eyes should be in the right place. And if they're in the right place already, I don't know why it's jumping like that. Sorry if the video is jumping in the recording. Then there is, you've already got things pretty sound where they belong. Okay. So again, if you do the work in the beginning, I really don't know why it's jumping. Gwen, is it jumping for you? The video?
Yeah.
What's going on? It's plugged directly into the laptop. So I find that frustrating. See if that's any better. There we go. Good. Now it's not jumping anymore. Okay, so again, we're not going to worry about the exact hair right now, but it's not like a hard edge. It's kind of like a very soft, jagged kind of edge. So we can kind of come through here and break some of that up. We're going to define it mostly with the eraser. Always look, we're like, I'm just looking at my darks, y'all. I'm just looking at my darks. I'm using the application of material in my darks to correct my drawing. Remember Thoreau, remember drawing without drawing. Remember that the form is what we're after. We're not after the edge. We're letting the form define the edge. It's so important. So as you're drawing, it's okay to sharpen your tool whenever you want. I'm just using a razor blade. I'm just scraping along the tip. That's all. And you can do that too. Or you can use a piece of sandpaper. Now I'm going to come through here and I'm just going to lightly put in some value for the cheeks. And I'm just going to knock it back. I don't know, maybe a little bit more value. Knock it back. Same thing on the other side. Just a little bit of value in there. It's a little bit darker on the right side, but I'm going to knock that back. Now in here, we see a little bit of a dip of shadow, knock it back. Now over here, we have quite a darker shadow, but knock it back. See, so I'm adding, knocking it back, adding, knocking it back. I'm going to add in here, I'm going to knock it back. Okay. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my eraser. Let's see, here's an eraser. It's already pretty dirty. And I'm going to cut it to a point with my knife. Boop. This little point, you see? Now I can use that to get into places. So I'm going to start by pulling out some light in here. I don't know if the camera's picking up that difference, but it's there. And then we've got the top of the eyelid has light. Push and pull, okay? So painters have always talked about push and pull. You pull something forward, and when you do that, it pushes something back. You can do it with color, you can do it with mark, you can do it with texture, you can do it with form, you can do it with value, but you're pushing something forward, pulling something back. Or if you want to think about the other way, fine. You're pulling out light and you're pushing back dark. Now in here, there's also like a middle tone light. And just like before, and some of you wrote to me and said that, how do you do the magic thing with the eraser? I'm just kind of like tapping. I'm not really like putting a lot of pressure in there and really scrubbing. I'm just kind of like gliding it a little bit across the surface. I'm not really like scrubbing. Okay. I can lift out even more if I need to. Again, just tapping, not scrubbing. Now we're going to come down the nose here. Pull out a little bit of light there. And then over here, we're going to come in. It's a pretty hard light in here, pretty strong plane. And then that's going to come back. I just scrub a dub in there so you're blending, blendy wendy. I'm looking and I'm like, Professor Vaughn, I don't know, those eyebrows don't look the same height. And I look in the painting and they're a little bit more right. Which one is right and which one is wrong? Well, I'm going to take my tool and measure and figure out which one is right and which one is wrong. Now, I've got a number of different ways to do this. I could look from this point here to like that point there and create an angle and measure the angle on the painting. I could go from this point here to that point here. And again, create a line there and figure out the angle. I can measure to see where the top of this eyebrow and the top of that eyebrow are in connection to one another. Okay, so it's not very good to do it with that piece of charcoal that I had because it's very crooked. And so I'm going to measure with a regular pencil and it looks like the bottom is just a hair below the top. And when I measure, okay, I'm right. You know, when I measure this angle here, I'm right. Okay, so let me measure from the highest point of the left eyebrow to the corner of the right eye and get a line. I'm right. Left to the highest point of the right eyebrow. I'm right. So my question now has to be, well, what's wrong? Like, I feel like something's wrong. Why does it feel wrong? Well, when I look into the painting, I can see that he's actually put some lights in here. They're kind of like scratchy, ratchy, blendy, wendy lights. And I know I'm annoying, but that's how I think. Kind of Doctor Who-esque. I don't remember what Doctor Who that was. 12th Doctor, I think, or something. There. Now I think that I need to widen the nose a little bit in terms of like the bridge of the nose. I'm going to widen that out. Maybe add some more dark there. Dark. And then I've added some dark, so I want to lift out a little bit. I'm going to use my eraser that I've cut to a point. Push this way. Whatever you do as you start to work with these charcoals, recognize that you don't have to be aggressive with everything. Sometimes you have to be aggressive. It's a matter of bringing up the strength of the drawing. But other times you can just be very light, very happy to just tickle the thing. When you stand in the ocean and you feel like a little fish nibbling at your toe. I don't know if fish do that on the, I've never actually, have I swum in the Pacific? Yeah, I haven't swum in the Pacific yet, so I don't know. Maybe this summer I'll go swim in the Pacific. You see what we're doing is we're finding all that intermediate stuff that in the beginning I said, don't worry about it. Look, we didn't, and now we're finding it, you see. It's okay too to find some hard planes, some strong lines of thrusting light. So there's a lot of light on the forehead that we can lift out. Wendy this. Yeah, let's not forget about the rest of the drawing. We've worked too long on the face without thinking about the rest of the drawing. Let's look at the kerchief. Let's see if I can zoom in there. Look in this area now. So here we have light, nice big plane. Here we have light. And here we have the shape of the knot. Well, he's not giving us a lot of shape, a lot of definition. So we're just going to kind of do what he did, which is just kind of like softly play with value. Something on the other side here. Didn't give us a lot. Let's not put a lot in there. See, and if you drawn that with contour, right, like there'd be probably like really hard lines in there as you tried to figure out that knot, but it doesn't exist. He didn't do that. Vaughn made a boo-boo. So I'm looking right now and I'm like, where did this happen? Like what's gone into this area here? I'm thinking, Vaughn, you made a mistake. This line here, this shadow is going to come down and it connects in here. And what that is I'm gonna pull that through there. That's actually telling me, Vaughn, you silly Billy. There's actually that's that part you had there. That wasn't part of the neck chief. That's actually the shirt underneath coming through here with this going on the top here. But no, no harm, no foul. Just move it. It's gone. Determine then which is lighter, the shirt underneath or the necktie. Well, the shirt right here is pretty bright. And then this is pretty bright up here. But then, one of the reasons why it was confusing is because he left a lot of this area bright. Like this is bright right here. And then here, this line here, that's definitely too thick. I'm gonna move that. Okay, so then over here, we're gonna go back in. There's some light here. We need to pull that light out. Okay. Dark underneath, that's no problem. We've done that before. It's gonna be dark. Okay, that looks good, Vaughn. Don't overdo it. And then watch. Here, light, light, light. Now, let's reinforce that eyebrow here. It's really strong. Like tinted eyebrows there. Look at the shape of the eyelid. And then here's our eraser again. Let's pull the white of the eye out. Now y'all can't tell on the camera, but the paper's actually like a light blue. It looks really white on the camera, but it's not. It's actually a light blue. This is actually the type of paper that I wouldn't actually be hesitant to utilize like a white charcoal on, just in a few places. But what you have to understand is when you're first learning, oof, that white charcoal is hard to learn to use. And one of the reasons it's so hard is because when you mix it with the charcoal, it changes color and it becomes like a really blue gray. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're working with color and you're not just working with charcoal and value. And that gets very problematic very quickly. So now you see, now we can start to reinforce and refine, but you see how late in the game this is? We've been drawing for 2 hours. Minus a break. And the reason that the drawing is working, and I hope your drawing is working too, is because if you're following along if anything, you would have a whole drawing. It wouldn't be half a drawing. It wouldn't be just an eye floating in the middle of nowhere if you're following along. Your drawing would be a head within the background on a torso. And that's the important part, right? Is that like the portrait isn't just the eye. The portrait isn't just the nose. It's everything. It's everything. And you have to find everything in order to make it look like that painting. Because if you don't have everything, then it's not going to work, because every part of the painting that you're looking at, every part of the painting is balanced with another part of the painting. And so if you remove the wholeness, the gestalt of the composition, you have nothing. And so you have to work up everything all at once. It's absolutely imperative. And if you want to finish your 4 foot by 3 foot self-portrait, if you don't work up everything all at once, you're completely lost. You're completely lost. How do you do that then? It's a big drawing, Vaughn. Well, say you don't have space to do the whole drawing all at once. You work on one sheet for 15 minutes, you move it to the side, you work on the next sheet. At least try to always work on 2 sheets at once. Like tape 2 sheets at once together so that you're always jumping from left to right side. Keep your drawing board under one sheet while you work on it, and then slide your drawing board under the other sheet and work on that. Do whatever you can do. The biggest challenge of that drawing, other than just the drawing, haha, is how to do it. It's creative problem solving. And that's why I have continuously done it. Because if there's one thing that we don't teach enough of in this country with our education system, if there's one thing that's deeply lacking from our education in America, it's the teaching of creative problem solving. And I know that because I was a K through 12 teacher. I taught every grade. Now, granted, that was in Florida, but you know, I still did it. I think sadly, Florida is now 48th in the country for education. I also taught in Pennsylvania, which is one of the top states for education in the country. Change the way you see the problem, and you will find the solution if you can't through one method, right? So there's an old trick with drawing where, like, if you can't draw what you're looking at, you can turn the paper upside down and draw the object, whatever it is, upside down, and it's no longer going to look like that object. And so you disassociate that it's supposed to be that object. Solve the problem. Create a different solution. That's what we're here to do. That's all drawing is. That's all art is. It's problem solving. Sometimes they're conceptual problems, like, you know, I'm like with my work, you know, I have a concept and it's a problem and I want to solve that problem. Sometimes it's just a very straightforward issue. How do I cut a piece of metal and I attach it to a mobile, and then it balances against another piece of metal and moves at a certain speed when the wind blows it? How do I design a room so when I walk into the room, I feel calm and at home? Sorry, I just shook the camera. Shadows a bit bigger. Okay, now you'll also notice that I haven't gone to compressed charcoal yet. I'm still very much working with the vine charcoal. And I probably actually won't go to the compressed with this drawing right now because I've built everything so slowly with the vine charcoal that once I bring in that compressed charcoal, I might really lose some of the contrast that I've developed and created. Shadow. Bottom plane there, bottom plane here, bottom plane there. Now, let's go back out here and he's got a little. Now you can find a little bit of shape. So you can see now that before I was adding all my darks. Well, now to create the other side of the form, I'm removing all my lights. Just gonna lift them out. I'm gonna pull them out. It's got this romantic bohemian hair, very Georgian. Very Beethoven-esque, right? Sort of the antithesis of Rococo, where every hair was in place and women had ships woven into their hair like sculptures. This is a different time. This is post, right at the Industrial Revolution. This is the Enlightenment. This is the natural world being overthrown by industry and steam. The artist saying, wow, we must still be in contact and connection with the emotion. So I'm going to show that off in my hair. I'm going to be disheveled like the sea. Now you're just manipulating and you're enjoying the malleability of your materials because you've left everything open and free and loose. And you are developing this quarter. You've all done really great work working on developing your sensibility for the light. Your sensibility of the charcoal. figure starts to come forward and speak to us. You know, I think when I was younger, I really thought about drawing as being a battle. I think for the first 10 years of teaching, I really thought about drawing as being a battle. Now I feel like it's more of a dance. I don't know if that means I've learned to expand my understanding of drawing or of dancing, but I see it. It's more subtle. More subtle relationship than a jewel, for instance. If you're a musician, you already know how to manipulate and play with the range of like a single note. Like if you're on piano, like I used to play piano, and you have a singular note, F sharp, and you push it, and you pound it, and suddenly it's this really loud, really strong note, and I don't know the name of the pedals, but you slam the pedal down, and on the right, whichever pedal that is, and it gets louder, you know. Or you just gently hold the F sharp very softly, and it makes a completely different noise. And you know, the key doesn't change. It's not like someone came and put a new piano in front of you. But what's changed is your sensibility. Now we're talking about sort of like the woo-woo art, the feeling of art, the sensibility. The door is no longer just a door drawn in perspective. It's an opening to the soul, whatever that might be. Get into the drawing, allow yourself to walk through that door of sensibility. But even now, if something's wrong, I want you to wipe it away and correct it. Don't let it sit there wrong. Make discoveries. You know, think about when a chemist is trying to make a new chemical and they're trying to make discoveries, and they mix two chemicals together. 1 and 1 becomes 1, and it's a complete failure. And so they slightly change the pH of one chemical, and they mix them together, and suddenly it's something completely different, and it works. That's all drawing is problem solving. Remove the hindrances that you place into it for yourself. The fear of getting it wrong. If you're not afraid of getting it wrong, because you can always redraw something, you can always fix something. And if you mess up a drawing, that's okay. You know, you see how I grade? You know, I'm looking for work. I'm looking for labor. I'm looking for growth. And that's the only way you're going to get better. It's just practicing, pushing. So time consuming, but it's like it's pleasure of time. In my opinion, you may not think so. Perhaps you'd rather be, you know, learning a language or chemistry or something. That's great. We need people who are chemists. We need people who are fluent in other languages. Darken in your background, darken in your coat. You know, he's relying on this real strong chiaroscuro. Like, that's so fine. Remember that left side that was so slightly lighter, but it's not bright. Not the brightness of the face. So let's make sure they're not in combat with one another. These jackets had a high collar, so I'm just gonna put one in there. I'll be something in here. The fabric extension. How's it going, Gwen?
Pretty good.
Good. Do you want to show me? Because I know you're going to be leaving in a second.
Yeah, I
I'll
need just a
pause.
second though.
Okay, I'll pause it. So here's our little drawing of young Master J.W.M. Turner. Okay, I just want to show you, I'm sort of breaking a rule here, but I'm going to go ahead and break that rule because I think that it's worthwhile for you to see. Because, you know, like one of the things I'd like to really do with you is that I'd like to really I really want to interest you in drawing. I want to make you really get interested in drawing. I don't want your interest in drawing to just simply end right now because class is over and you're done with a quarter and you can forget about the rest. I want you to get interested in like, what does drawing do? Like, you know, and so I'm just going to show you. And now I don't want you to do this on any of your drawings. not for this class, but I'll show you kind of what is possible with a little bit of white charcoal. Sorry, I just need to get another knife because that knife isn't going to sharpen this. So white charcoal is quite a dangerous material because, like I said, very quickly it becomes a color with the charcoal. So you have to really balance it. Can't overdo it. And the other thing is, right, like if you overdo it, then why use it? This is the highlight. This is the brightest part. This, yeah, this is the caramelized sugar on the creme brulee. And if the whole creme brulee was caramelized sugar, it wouldn't be creme brulee, right? It'd be something completely different and probably a little inedible. Although I do love sugar, so I could probably eat a whole bowl of caramelized sugar, to be honest. But I think that's just my British tooth, my British sweet tooth. You know, I used to disgust people, you know, when I was younger in America because I would just eat sugar cubes. But, you know, it was never like, there was always sugar cubes on the table when I was growing up. Okay, so I don't want to overdo this. Okay, so I just want to put this bright white only in the areas where I really want the drawing to have a high key value. See how immediately that I put it on, the whole drawing is out of balance. So I have to be really careful with it. See, just putting the smallest amount on, boom. Everything's off balance now. So you can't just put it one spot. It has to be moved throughout. And what I don't want to do is I want to avoid as much as I can bringing it into areas where there's already a lot of charcoal, because again, it's going to become a color. Okay. Does it serve a purpose? Yes. You can really use it. You can really work it. It can really become something. But just like anything, it takes time to learn. It's a skill. You know, if you've ever dyed your own hair, you know what happens if you have dark brown hair or black hair and you decide to suddenly go blonde. Right? Everyone's walking around with orange hair there for 2 or 3 months because the bleach just turned the dark hair brown. The same thing can happen here. If you overuse this, it won't look bleached. It won't look white. We've all been there. We've all been there. I don't think there's a hair color I haven't had. Maybe purple. Maybe I haven't had purple. It's very gently. I don't want to put it into places where it's like mid-tone. I only need to put it into places where I need light, like pure light. Look at this highlight over here. I'm actually gonna take my eraser. And I'm gonna erase out that highlight there. Now that it's erased, I can check it and can say, okay, like I'm gonna look at the original, like, is that bright light there? Is it the light of the paper, or do I need to hit it with the white charcoal? Do I need to increase the light? I think it needs to be increased. I'm gonna increase it just right here. Now you're also probably hearing me walk back and look at my drawing and then walk forward. I think my downstairs neighbors probably completely hate me, because even at like 2 a.m. when I'm painting, I'm walking back and forth and my floor is very squeaky. But that always lets me get in there and really have a look at the drawing to see, like, how is it actually going? You know, when you're up close all the time, you can't really tell. At this time, you can see I'm just pulling the drawing to a finish with you because I want you to see. There, that's how you would bring some white chalk into the drawing to give it those last moments of highlight that maybe you need. Now, again, of course, you don't have white chalk, and I wouldn't want you to use it if you did. Sometimes Dick Blick will give these kits and they have white chalk in them. And I always tell them, everyone, if you're not ready to use that, don't use that. It takes some time to really learn how to control this type of material to make it do what you really want it to do. And so this is kind of what you would do. It's one of the tricks of drawing. Okay, so I'll make a discussion board and you'll post your drawing today that you made from the self-portrait of 1798 by J.W.M. Turner. Please keep up to date with your submissions for your self-portrait so that you don't fall behind in that work. I am currently catching up right now with grading I have your Thoreau drawings to grade, and I have your emotional landscapes to grade. And please do your evaluation. It's worth 10 points, and get those videos in. Y'all, I've had a couple of video responses to the lecture and they are great. I'm so excited to hear from you. So excited to hear from you. I really, really have enjoyed the responses to the lecture. So get those in there. It's so nice to hear students just respond to ideas of mine and respond to artwork. And yeah, I really want you to get that in so I can enjoy listening to you talk and really get a sense of how you're thinking about consumption and thinking about art. I'm so excited to hear from you. And I just want to note that one of the students posted a little bit about they were thinking about Henry Moore. And I just wanted to remind you, that art is one of the ways that we digest what's happening around us in the world. Go look at Henry Moore's drawings from the bomb shelters from when he drew in London during World War II. And everyone hid in the subways. And I want you to think about that. And I want you to think about what's happening right now in Ukraine. And I want you to see and consider parallels and think about how is art used? How are artists using art to make us aware of things like humanitarian crisis, make us aware of things like joy and pleasure, but also sadness and just trauma and the way that the human condition exists. So I want you to, just do me a solid favor and go and look at some of those bomb shelter drawings by Henry Moore from World War II. And, think about what you're seeing in those drawings and what you're seeing in the news right now. And then take yourself one step further, and watch the footage of the people of Berlin welcoming Ukrainian refugees, welcoming refugees into their homes, thousands of them waiting for refugees to arrive in Berlin. And think about how history manifests itself, how history, how things change and morph. And think about the role that art has in that. And think about how we learn from art how to understand the human condition. Okay, I'm really excited to see your videos, so please get those starting to come in. Don't let that creep up on you. It might take you a little bit of time to get through that lecture. I'm really excited to see these drawings today, so I can't wait to see your drawings, and reach out if you have any questions or any needs, okay? All right, thanks everybody.